Well, I guess I will go game show host for a brief 10 seconds here.
Little Price is Right.
Yeah. Well, really what it is, we're wrapping up, this season of our show, and we thought what better way to do it than to feature some creators and folks that really speak to us. So all month we've been celebrating creators, whether they're writers, authors, designers, whatever you think. We've had some great folks on, and couldn't think of a better way than to wrap up this month than with a personal favorite of mine, artist Vince Sunico. Vince, how are we doing?
Not too bad. Thank you for having me here. Really excited. Yeah, I'm honored too. Really honored.
Yeah, that makes 3 people excited right now. I can guarantee you that between everyone talking today, because yeah, absolutely. And I know Mark and I have really enjoyed your work because Mark and I used to have these tiny parties that consisted of me, him, his wife, and one of his children who was just kind of hanging out, where we would be opening up Walking Dead cards for hours on end. And if we were lucky, we got to get cards with your work on them.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, actually,
I remember doing that. I remember doing that card set. Yeah, the whole Walking Dead thing. Fun. They were really fun to do. Just because I love drawing the whole, if you see a lot of my zombie stuff, I really love doing that whole really dead looking stuff, I guess. I like the dead stuff, but the zombie stuff, I like it. Or the walkers.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing I did notice about your work specifically is you've got some very in the Walking Dead set, that is, you had some very specific walker looks. We had some side profiles. You got actually some really cool ones that are front facing. I think you had a zombie in a swimsuit at one point. I remember seeing. You had some pretty cool stuff in this set that we ended up breaking into, but because of that, Vince, that's why I really was happy to get you on the show, because really your art's kind of been speaking to me for several years now, and just kind of getting little pieces at a time. At first, I really only saw you through the Walking Dead card sets, and I'd look forward to the very slim chance that I would be able to pull one out of a pack, and so it wouldn't be until a couple of years after that set came out that I started looking into what else you were working on. And I learned that you're one of the hardest working people I've ever seen. I mean, you've got incredible artwork almost daily, on your Instagram, and I've just always been curious. I mean, do you sleep at all? I mean, how often are you sketching? Because it's all the time, it looks like.
Yeah, I'm drawing every day, but yeah, sleep is very important. I mean, I remember years ago, doing heavy freelance work, and just I did find it was very important to get a lot of sleep. So it's all about time management. That's the key part. Yeah, that's the key. But yeah, I know I literally draw every day, but it's a mix of everything. I'll be working on a project or just working on sketches or some commission work. So either way, I'm always doing something drawing.
Yeah.
And when you do this, you see you've got something going on every day. Do you have multiple things going on where you kind of jump from project to project, or do you find that you will sit down and work one thing all the way through and then move on to the next?
Usually, it depends what I'm drawing. When I find myself drawing something I really, really like, if it's say whatever, and then I can literally draw for a while. Then when I say younger, I remember drawing 12 hours straight, just because I was really loving it.
Yeah.
Not to say when I draw other stuff, I do find as getting older, but it does take me a few hours, and I have to take a break. But my key thing to drawing is I'm doing 2 things at a time. It's more mentally and physically. It just helps me keep drawing, as opposed to sitting there and drawing something straight.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm always working on 2 things. Either a main project commission, but the sketches you see me post on Instagram are stuff that I'm just doing onto the side. Sometimes it's commissions, of course, and other projects, but a lot of stuff is just stuff of just stuff doing something whatever, and then I'm sketching something and I'll be like, oh, that's for Instagram. And I go back to work again.
Well, I mean, seeing your Instagram stuff alone, you were talking about you drawing from stuff you like when you were a kid.
Yeah.
You've got something for everyone here. I mean, you've got Ninja Turtles, Marvel and DC Comics characters, pro wrestlers, He-Man,
Yeah.
Predator. I've noticed even one self-portrait where I can see you've got a very, very manly beard and this red stripe that seems to go around your body and over your eye.
I try.
Yeah. I think that's hilarious.
Trying to be godlike.
Yeah. This whole thing. Yeah, this whole thing. I gotta. Yeah.
Somewhere between the Olympian and the Norse pantheons, you will find Vince Sunico.
It's my summer look.
Well, Vince, something I was really wondering from day one, and this goes with a lot of folks we talked to on this show, is understanding what you can't find on like a Wikipedia article or what you can't find by a quick Google search, because as we kind of talked about before our call here, there's not a lot of documented things on you outside of your artwork, and I didn't know if that was by design or if you found the that internet scrubber that removes all of that data somehow. But I was always interested in like Vince's origin story. Where did we start? How did we get into artwork? What was the process like there?
Yeah, are you like a Ron Swanson where you have redacted even information on your birth certificate?
That I don't know. They all started in Sparta, but no. It's more like, and I'm not really much into the whole internet social. Like you'll find some stuff. Like I don't have a lot of studio work, you can kind of call it, so you don't see like a resume of me like working in a lot of places. When I started the whole art stuff, I mean, I've been drawing since I was a kid, more for fun as I get older, but kind of took it serious when I started hitting the convention scene, the whole comic book stuff. And that was like in 2007. That's when I really kind of took it serious. Whereas like, because like when I went to the convention, as you're younger, like I'll say myself, like, I like comic books. I wanted to like get into Marvel or DC. And, you always try to look at different ways. You go to the conventions and you try to show it to like editors or whatever. But here, I'm from Canada, so there wasn't a lot of editors coming to Canada in the early days. It was just more like the artist and that's pretty much it and whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, but when I went to the conventions, I saw one of my friends there, and he had an Artist Alley table. Like I never knew much about Artist Alley. Like I just thought like, okay, just different artists trying to get their stuff up. But when I saw him there, he was like kind of making money. Like he was selling his stuff, and he was a good artist. And then I think he just drew like a dragon. But I'm looking at him like, that's it. And the guy came like, this is awesome. Gives him the money. And I'm like, why am I standing on the other side of the table? So that, and then I think the following year I started getting into the scene and seeing how I guess it all goes back to like really networking, but seeing how the whole industry works. And I started to realize like, there's like a lot more work into it as opposed to just just draw it and then hope for the best type thing. You can't get out, you won't be noticed unless you get out there. That's pretty much it.
Sure.
But basically, I just got busier with other stuff, like a lot of commissions and a lot of side projects. So I never had a chance to really show my stuff to, like, say, companies. Right? I just end up just making good on my own either way.
Yeah. I think that was kind of the route that I tried to apply logic to after a while, was looking through your journey, because your Instagram does kind of show a journey of exploring, different styles. Like you mentioned, you're experimenting at times. You're taking things like the Predator and turning them into demons, and with like the forehead images and all that. I mean, that stuff's incredible to look at.
Not say like anyone does it, but I did a demon one. But I also did like even like a Moana symbol. The movie Moana, Disney. I just did it there. I do a lot of Easter eggs in my drawings to see if anybody sees it. So there's like a Predator one I did with the Moana symbol. I don't think anybody saw it. So But to me, it was fun. So. To me, it was okay. So.
Yeah, and I love like just even like your drawing technique and drawing style, because you will take other things that you enjoy. Like you have anime characters that do not look anime at all, but are instantly recognizable. You can see this and you can like, this is Vince Sunico, and it's amazing and it's brilliant and it's awesome. And it's not the same thing you're getting with the characters when you normally see them drawn.
Yeah.
So it's I'm just in awe of what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you know, I try to like really get my own unique style, and then to get your own style, usually I get like younger artists, or not younger artists, but people like trying to get into their own art style. And I always tell them like, it takes years, because you gotta, like I say, you steal from everybody to make your own. Right? What's that term when they say a good artist copies?
Yeah.
What a great artist steals?
Yeah. Yeah, isn't the term in America it's plagiarism, but the French call it homage?
There you go. You gotta love their croissants. But and I like the fact that I can do like draw other stuff and then put my own touch to it. Like the way I was kind of like to work on my own stuff. I don't like if everyone else is doing it, like I just rather do what I like doing type thing. Or like I don't follow like the whatever's popular. Like like when we do like our friends will get together and they want to say, what are you gonna draw for like Instagram, whatever? Oh, the movie's out of say Deadpool. Then I'll just draw like I'm gonna draw My Little Pony. But like why do I have to do that in a way? Yeah, that's my take, but I just like you're either gonna like my stuff or not. That's basically it.
Well, I mean that's the thing. Like as an artist, don't you feel like I mean, if you're not into it, do you feel like you could be successful at it? Like if someone says like, "Hey, I need Deadpool like riding a platypus. Can you give me that?" And you're like, "I don't really feel like drawing that." I mean, I feel like your heart's got to be in it to be able to make it into the things that you do.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing I always find, in, like just over the years, I find like I do have like say like companies will like, like message me. But over the years, I just find like I can't work something I'm not really into.
Yeah.
You know, like if say like let's say like Marvel came up and say, "Hey, can you draw for us?" And I'll be like, "Okay, well, what's the character?" But if I'm not feeling the character or the story or whatever, I'm just like, nah. And then to sit there and draw something you don't want to draw is not good. And I had my fair share of like doing stuff where I'm just like, oh my god.
I mean, to your credit, you've managed to make Captain Planet look as majestic as any comic book character I've ever seen.
It's Captain Planet.
And then on the flip side of that, you've got Freakazoid, just as brilliantly made, and he looks almost like Jokerish in the way that you did it. You know, like he looks menacing, but at the same time, I'm like, that's the same crazy dude I watched for years on TV. So like. So I think that kind of is going into where I was going to get to, is that when we start talking about like, that's a Sunico drawing. For me, it was when I would see just how much of the face you animate. And I think that's really, really consistent. Even when you have, like a stoic looking character, I feel like the face that you portray, like the bottom half, is always like, it's always fully realized. And whether that's like a massive smile or just the lines, like I feel like there's never a wasted line in a drawing that you do. And so for me, that's what I do. I look at the face, I look at like the bottom half, and I go, I know who drew that.
Nice. So you see my stuff. Yeah, I always find like depending on what I'm drawing, like I do put a lot of thought into everything I produce. Like I try to think more outside the box, and then I try to really focus on expressions. I think it always came down to like Wolverine is a perfect example.
Yes.
Now, I don't have to say anybody when I look at their Wolverine, I always think of Wolverine as like just feral and just beastly.
Yeah.
But then he can be a guy who can chill and have a beer. So you can draw either way. But then when I see, probably the artist was. I'm not trying to poke on any artist, but he drew Wolverine, but he looked like a model. And he was just like blue eyes, and he was just like, and I was just like, oh. But Wolverine, he's he's like over 100 years old, but he's just a stocky, beastly looking guy. So when you look at my Wolverines, it's going to be either or. Either he's like a chilling guy, or he's like about to go berserk,
Yeah.
right? And it's all about the expressions. And I learned more of it goes back to, like I said, I think like the acting in some ways, where it's all in the eyes and the facial.
Yeah.
And I learned this before, like it was more like on the Indian culture. Someone was telling me, like, if you ever look at the dancers, and I think one of the friend was a dancer, and then he was telling me, like, because they darken the eyes in their makeup. The reason why they do that is all the expressions is within the eyes.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, oh yeah. And I kind of took that to heart, and I'm just like, oh, okay. So when you look at my drawings, there's a lot of, it's just not me drawing an eyeball. I'm drawing whatever expression is happening the best I could. And I find that was a key part when learning about the eyes and the facial and how everything was put together. You can get so much from just the face alone as opposed to the whole body. So when I draw like full body, you can see what he's doing, or just the headshot, but you can tell exactly what he's going through just by the face.
Oh yeah, easily. I know I draw quite a bit, but not nearly the level that you do. And when I even like help my students out, one of the things that I'll say, like, if you want expression, just make crazy ass eyebrows, and you will get your point across, because they'll look confused, angry, sad, and that's where it lives. And you described that much more eloquently than I did, and I'm probably going to have to start stealing that from you.
See, you steal it.
Yeah.
All right,
homage. Here we go.
You know, on your point of Wolverine, I love every time I come across a Wolverine sketch of yours, because you're absolutely right. Like, a lot of times when I see it, it's like he's either just killed something, or he's heading to kill something, and he's got that his teeth are always like clenched, you know, and so everything that goes with that clench is present, whether it's his eyes, like, you know, pressing down, all animalistic, like you mentioned. And then for me, usually the cherry on top is like a blood trace of some kind, right? You like to, you really work with blood traces really well. And so when I see that, I'm like, you know, like coming off of a lip, and you see how they kind of go to the contour of the face, you know, that stuff's
it's the little things.
Yeah. I stop and I stare at it. I'm seriously just like, my wife's like looking at me, and I got my phone like this, and I'm like, what are you looking at? You know, and in her mind, it's like, it's either porn or it's a Vince Sunico drawing. Which one is it?
I'm in the level of porn. I like
that. Yeah. yes. Yeah, you're higher than porn.
Porn is this.
Oh, like yeah, that's yeah. And that was something too that I really enjoyed was the variety and what you tend to focus on. Like you said, you're having fun. You're picking out stuff that really speaks to you. Yeah. And every now and again, I see a post of you talking about, you know, finding something from a video game. And, you know, you probably can't tell from looking at Joe and myself, but we spent a lot of hours with a controller in our hand.
Nice.
And I was interested to find that about you, if you still play video games now, and what kind of stuff you were focusing on when you did play.
Oh, you know, I do enjoy video games, but not as much as now. I remember the days of Atari and Nintendo. PlayStation. Yeah, I'm from that day. But anything beyond that, like I haven't gotten a chance to play any video games. But like everything from, like, I think we're up to the Xbox or the first PS. That's when I was playing a lot. But after that, not as much.
Yeah.
But usually I'll get like people messaging, like, because I do like drawing characters I never heard of. If I look at it, but I do kind of look at videos and see what they're all about. So if someone said like, oh, can you draw this character? And I'll look it up. I'm like, oh, this kind of character looks cool. And then of course there's a lot of YouTube. You go to YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Then I'll see the character. Then I'll just say, I'll mention a friend of mine might have played, and I say, tell me more about this character. So there's all these little things I do before I draw a pic. It's more than just a random, oh, it looks cool, but I like to learn more.
Yeah.
So with the video games, like I have a buddy of mine, Nick. He actually, he's a big fan of Metal Gear.
Oh yeah.
Like he loves Metal Gear. So I played the first Metal Gear game. I remember that. And that was awesome. Like just how the gameplay was back in those days.
Yeah.
But I haven't played neither the later stuff. But hearing the story, like he'll tell me like the story behind it. I'm like, wow, it's crazy. And just the way they are, how they're all put together. So when he's telling me this stuff, I'm like, drawing them are actually really cool, like Snake and all them. I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
Onslaught, like I never heard of it, but that thing he does, like, you're pretty good. I'm like, that's funny. That's awesome. But then I draw it, and then I get more familiar with it, and but there's like a big fan base of like Metal Gear guys.
Yeah.
Like, oh, which makes sense, but at the same time, like, that's why, like, when I hear stuff, like, it's just random when I post. It's just like, it's a variety. Like, I'll post Dragon Ball something, and I'd be like, Metal Gear. Like, okay. Next, you know, I was like, oh, a lot of people like Metal Gear.
I know you could have pranked him and just drew a picture of a cardboard box upside down and open on one side.
Yeah, the cardboard.
There's this picture of Snake.
I remember the box was a cool idea.
It's hilarious. Such a funny game mechanic.
Yeah,
but
fan requested. This is a fan requested commission.
A box.
Just a box.
I get what's in the box.
That's great.
What's in the box?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, I just came to mind too. You know, when I always also, and as you can probably tell, Vince, I've looked at your Instagram quite a bit on a consistent basis here, and one of my favorite things to look at is when you do side profiles, you know, of a character.
Yeah.
And you know, as much as we see comic book characters in all kinds of different poses and everything, looking at these almost as like a statue piece, you know, in the museum, like kind of getting to turn and look at things a different way.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you doing these side profiles, because you did a picture of Beta Ray Bill. And
oh yeah, I think I know which one.
Yeah, the horse looking, you know, Thor, basically, right?
He's like one of my favorite characters. Like that.
Yeah. Oh, dude, and it's just sick because he incorporates this sense of fear almost in me when I saw this side profile of him, because even though he's a good guy typically, right, the way that you drew him, like it reminds me of like in Ren and Stimpy when you see the animation, but then they do the zoom in and you see like all the, you know, the moles and stuff, and it's like I'm used to seeing Beta Ray Bill animated, and then I see him in this like hyper realistic view, and I'm like, just looking at this going, this is what he'd probably look like, and it's kind of terrifying in a way, you know, like this is
he's definitely a fan, because I love the Thor character, and then I remember reading the storyline with Battery Bill. I don't know if you're familiar with the story, but like his character, like I really liked his character. Like I don't know much of him now, but he just seems to be more side character nowadays.
Yeah.
But when you look at his story with Thor, I think it's one of my favorite storylines in Marvel. But he was just like a cyborg type character, like kind of built to be the protector of his people, but he was just like really a powerful warrior. And then he got the power of Thor on top of that, so he was just like more powerful, and he was like bigger than Thor. Like you see drawings of him now, he's just like the same size as Thor, like he's skinnier. I'm like, hey, Battery Bill. I don't know. But the thought I always had, because he was just thicker and just meaner looking, because he's like a warrior for his people who became like the top of he became like selected, and then he had the hammer that made him like worthy of Thor's power on top of that. I was like, man, this is badass. And that's why when I drew him, that's when I'm drawing particularly him, I always think of that image of like just mean but a nice guy. But he's a nice guy.
Oh yeah, that's what most he's a gentle giant, except for the whole hammer thing. And he only got like a very small. I don't want to say cameo, but a small appearance in Thor Ragnarok, because he was just
he was in a statue.
Yeah, he's on the tower, of the.
But I don't know if they bring him on, the storyline is off a bit. Like, I'm not trying to be picky. I'm like, that's not how he looks like, because he only got the look because he got Thor's power. Plus, Stormbreaker is already in the movie, so how's that work? Because Odin made the hammer. He's the one that literally made the hammer for Battery Bill. But in the movie, it's a little bit different. But I get it. We'll get whatever version.
It's a story they need to tell.
And for now, I'll just be jealous of Bill for being able to floss a lot easier than the rest of us, because like
it's all right there.
It's all right there.
His teeth are just all out there, ready to go.
You can go, and on this side is like you can just it's a big gap there.
Well, when I remember, Vince, when you and I first were connecting here, I was interested to hear a little bit more about the Loathe project, because you know, it's, if you look, it's on a couple different of your websites and everything. But I know there's not a lot out there on it just yet. So I know that obviously with the project that's coming out, I believe next year, right? It's coming out in 2022. Or is it?
Yeah, I think it's going to come out in 2023.
2023.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was planning for that, but then there's more work to it.
Yeah. Well, and we didn't know how much you could disclose about it, but I know that when I was looking through, you know, some of the imagery and the stuff that's out there on it, I wanted to know a little bit more about it. If you can disclose a little bit more about the project and just let us know what that's about.
Yeah. Well, basically, Loathe was a character I made like years ago, but it was more design wise. I just liked the look, and it was actually it was more based on a portfolio piece. You know, like you're trying to get into the industry, let's say. You just gotta put a portfolio, and he was just a character that I just kind of made to make a bad guy for a little 3-pager.
Yeah.
And then over the years, I kind of looked at him like it was more on his mask. His mask, if anybody's like listening, you know, he's just like, it's more of like it's like a wraparound, but with these kind of stapling in front of his face with a straight row. But that kind of look kind of stuck with me. And then, and I think just like maybe 5-6 years ago, I started to figure, like, you know, put a story behind it. Because there was really no story behind it. I wanted something with them, but I just didn't know. I wasn't much of a writer or a storyteller at all. Like, I just drew. But then I actually took time to actually learn to really, you know, I was like watching stuff and reading and just researching and kind of building the story. Then meeting a friend of mine, Nick, the Metal Gear guy, he did a little bit of writing too, and he went for school for it. So we kind of worked together to put a story together for this character role. So basically, the character is like, he's more of like I guess like an anti-hero, reluctant hero, but different in a way. When you see him, he looks, you can almost say he looks like a villain in some ways, but he's not. But he has his story is like, when putting the whole story, there's a big major story behind him, and it's all takes place in a superhero world. And basically, he just kind of kills off everybody in a fun way. But more to it, like what really got to the character is like, he's actually a Shaolin monk.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's what really catches everybody. So when I mentioned that, because you can the character could have been like an ordinary character, but there's actually, he's a Shaolin monk in as a background, and then there's a whole story in how he becomes Loathe. So that's like part that intrigues a lot of people. So the book that I'm working on is, it kind of takes that, but it takes it in place into another world. So Loathe actually deals with more of the multiverse idea. Nothing too crazy, but with the book coming out, he actually falls into another multiverse. So I did it in a way where new readers who are not familiar with Loathe at all, but are familiar with superhero world. So I have my own take of a Superman, Batman, the whole bit. So people, when I put in this book together, it kind of puts everyone there like, oh, okay, superhero book, okay, whatever. And then you see this guy like, okay. And immediately he's like wrecking everything. Right. And then, so like the whole idea is, now there's a girl named Mystic who is going to be the eyes of the reader. So they're going to follow her as basically seeing what this character is all about. And there's going to be a bit of a history behind Loathe as you're following the character as they're trying to stop him. Well, there's a whole reason why he's there, because like his main he has an arch enemy called Victory, who's like the Superman, you could say, but he's also very powerful as well. So they have a history, but they happen to fall into this other universe, you can say. So that gives you kind of an idea, because basically I wrote his very beginning to the very end. But I can only take a section from the in order to tell this story. So this one kind of worked, where it's just like, okay, it's going to take place in another in the multiverse idea. So he's going to be in there where it's going to be perfect, because everybody will be like, okay, now they're in for the ride, and they won't be totally lost as they're reading it. And in the book itself, there's going to be a lot of definitely a lot of action, but there's definitely a good story behind it too, where you get to see him and the girl as well, who's going to be the one that everybody's gonna be following.
Yeah, that's a really, I mean, that's a really cool idea, because we've talked about other properties and how some of them will drop you into like some relative pandemonium.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about how The Walking Dead has done that at times.
Yeah.
There's other superhero properties that'll do that. They just kind of drop you right into stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's more enjoyable, because then later on you might have a chance to go back and sprinkle context as you go, as opposed to front loading it and then making it that same origin story we've all seen before.
Yeah.
And
to really think outside the box with this one. I like to think it's a different storytelling in some ways, as opposed to your typical story, as I guess with the superhero books. I guess because this one, Loathe, is like it's a new character, and it's really hard. As like any like when you're trying to bring on a property out, it's like how are you gonna get people hooked into it, and especially with the story. So I think this approach is gonna work pretty well. And then what I put together. There's definitely like for me, I'm excited when now I'm starting the pages now. Like I just can't wait to get to these pages, to the scenes and all this stuff, and even just a story with Mystic. Like she's basically a 15-year-old girl who has issues with her grandfather, who's the victory in this storyline. But there's like a story behind her, so there's still something going on. And you get to learn more about Loaf, and you get to see his Shaolin thing. Like I try not to make him like the key thing on the Shaolin. There's a whole story with Loaf, but it is part of his backstory. But it will give people like to understand like where he's coming from. Like he is killing a lot of people. There's a whole reason why though. You gotta have a reason.
That's a great literary device though, because when you have a narrator that you can't trust, that really changes the whole ball game. And so that's kind of cool. And we won't ask you to divulge too much more of that. But
here's the ending.
Yeah. Well, looking at Loathe, I every time I kind of go through your profile, I find myself at that picture of Loathe, just seeing him kind of standing there, and it looks like he's contemplating what he just did or something, like that shot of him where he's like looking down, and it's like I feel like that guy has got so much baggage that he can't check any of it on the plane, of course, and so it's just looking at there's a photo of him that we'll actually include with our show notes so people can see what Loathe looks like. But he reminds me of like a combination of like you've got like a little bit of Spawn in there, you've got a little bit of Batman, and I didn't know about the Shaolin monk side of it, but I also saw Kung Lao from Mortal Kombat, because he's got these very specific forearm guards that he wears. And so when I saw that, I saw the combination of that and maybe a little bit of Batman at the same time. So his design is, I mean, it's pretty badass to look at, and I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, because like even his design alone is like there's a whole story. Like it's not going to be in this book, but it is one of those things where you kind of create the Bible for the character. So there's a whole look. There's a look. There's a whole reason why he looks that way, and how he got all those particular looks. Everything's designed as his story builds up to what he looks like now. Because he was originally, his original design, let's say in the story, he just had a regular hooded look to him or whatever else, and he had a sidekick. Not getting too much into it, but it kind of leads up to that particular look and why he looks that way. Right? Okay. Like even like the little staples, there's a reason why he got those. It's not that he just got to put on.
Just woke up one morning. You know what? I'd love to staple the mask to me. That way it's harder to get off. Keeps the whole like superhero like secret identity really rolling for me.
I got an Amazon account. So his staples. There's a whole story behind that too. Like even how it's wrapped. There's a whole purpose behind it and why he looks that way. Like, again, that's like his backstory. For anybody asks, like, what about this or what about that? And I'd be like, here's the proof.
Well, I mean, I think it's great you thought about that, and that you've got like again that makes it so that kind of even like something simple like how like Batman only has the bright spot on his chest. So that's what gets shot at. Like everything is it has purpose, it has function, and it's not there for the sake of I think it looks cool. It's like, oh, it looks cool, but there's a reason that it's there.
There's
and
a whole reason.
It's just well designed that way.
Yeah, like even his power. I think it's a little bit different, so it gives a reason why he's pretty strong too.
Mm-hmm.
It all revolves like it's kind of connected to the whole Shaolin monk stuff. But then there's also within the story itself, there is some supernatural where he's dealing with the devil too. So there's this whole connecting of the universe idea.
Mm-hmm.
So even when he fights, there's a reason why he's so strong. It's not just because like out of nowhere, like he got level 9,000. How? I don't know.
The plot needed him to do this, so he did it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I like to think that there's a whole purpose to why he's so strong. Like for instance, like he can pretty much like abbreviate someone, like literally like punch someone to death, almost like a death touch.
Okay.
How he does it, he draws energy from not just the universe but the multiverse. If you think it that way.
Okay.
So it only goes to like the whole meditation thing. Yeah. But there's a purpose of why. He's not given. He had to work into that level of why he got that strong. And it's almost that thing where other beings are like, how the hell do you do it?
Yeah.
Right? Hard work.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of push-ups.
Yeah. He didn't just drink a pre-workout or slam a can of spinach.
It's just a protein shake. That's all it is, folks.
All it is.
It's getting the right mix in there.
Yeah. It's just a big core workout. That's all it is. That's all it is.
Just kettlebell swings. Night and day difference after doing them.
A lot of kettlebells.
I do love it, Vince, how you mentioned this earlier, that superheroes looking like models, it just doesn't, there's just not a whole lot of creativity there. And it's not to knock the people that do this look, but I think that the clean superhero is kind of a thing of the past, right? Like those superheroes, I imagine, are like sitting in front of Abercrombie and Fitch, welcoming you in, as opposed to like maybe looking down like a dark alley and you see somebody look up and you only see their eyes. Like that's the kind of grittiness I think we're kind of used to now. And I think that from everything I've seen on Loathe, I mean, perfectly captures that. It's a good combination of like I really want to know more about this character, but I'm also kind of terrified of it. So it's a good balance. I really like what you've done.
Yeah.
Like he's not like it's funny. He can be like crouching or just standing, whatever. But I always thought of him like when you see him out there, it's almost like you're familiar with the Undertaker. You know how he just slowly walks, but then he just like hits the top rope. So that's why I kind of have it with Loathe. He's kind of like that, where he's like very intimidating. He just kind of walks into the battlefield. Yeah. Right. But then next you know, he's like jumping in the air and giving elbows and all this stuff.
Yeah, they got like a Jason Voorhees. Like he's always walking, but somehow he's right fucking there.
Yep. Yeah, like the Devil's Luchador, is a good nickname for him, right?
Yeah.
Well, hey, a little bit different topic, because we do some research on this show. If you can't tell, Vince, we'd like to kind of look into what the internet gives us. Now, I was looking at a project that was called Platypus versus Monkey, and it had your name attached to it. And I didn't know if you were familiar with that, because your name is attached to this thing called Platypus versus Monkey. And if you didn't know about it, I wanted to read it off to you.
Yeah.
It's absolutely nuts. So it sounds like you haven't heard of this.
Probably I didn't remember. Too busy.
A job has been created.
Playing the first Metal Gear game. I'm too busy.
Yeah. In which case, I didn't know. This was like kind of a Hail Mary, because I just did some research and I found this synopsis, so I figured I'd read it off to you.
Yeah.
So it says, what happens when a streetwise platypus finds himself facing off against a discarded test pilot monkey from the Soviet space program? Does that sound familiar to you at all?
No. Did I draw it?
So this project, I found this like on what page is this? I think it was actually Comixology, believe it or not.
Okay.
And they've attached you to this like project that has literally a monkey and a platypus fighting against each other. So I wanted to at least make you aware of it, but I'm actually surprised that your name's attached to it through this Amazon verified company.
No way. I should be honored.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they'll be contacting you soon.
Yeah, I haven't get my royalties yet.
Yeah.
Wait, does it say when it came out, or like when it?
So it doesn't give a date on here, but what it does say is that an old friend has a problem in a far corner of the universe and needs help before the undead take over the entire planet. So
So
what I'm getting is it might be an anthology, which is why I thought you may have been involved with it. But yeah, somebody thinks you did this.
Oh, I've never.
Mhm.
I feel even someone maybe I did. I don't know. I just don't remember. I apologize to whoever put them together. Oh, but the name seems so catchy. I would
Yeah.
remember that, but I guess not. Unless they changed the name and then it was something else. And it
Yeah,
could be like an anthology too. So I
yeah,
remember doing something. I think
yeah.
I gotta look
And
into that one.
and part of this actually was interesting to me because we interviewed actor Dan Bahar from like Basketball and Orgasmo and movies from with like Trey Parker and Matt Stone,
Yeah, yeah.
and there was stuff in his IMDb that gets attributed to him that he never did,
Oh,
and so this is kind of why I was like, well, let me look into this because I've never even heard of this.
Mhm.
And so I figured I'd put it in front of you and see if we could knock anything loose because it's definitely out there, and I'll be more than happy to provide it to you after the call so you can take
yeah,
a look
yeah,
for
for
yourself.
sure.
But yeah, so Platypus versus Monkey, folks. If you've never heard of it, go give it a shot on Comixology and tell us what you think. tell Vince what you think too.
Yeah, let me know. I got show
But
that.
yeah.
I never heard of that one. I've never heard of it.
Well, one thing I wanted to, I'm not sure if we want to call it the finale here, but one thing I wanted to ask you about was, as you mentioned, you don't have like like a social media presence, that a lot of other folks may have that are in the same field, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
A lot of folks are like hitting like Facebook hard, they're hitting Twitter and all that stuff, and I mean, obviously, you've got over 100,000 people that are looking at your stuff on a daily basis. I mean,
Yeah.
you're one of the most popular artists I've seen on Instagram that like routinely shows up in my feed. Like
Oh,
I'm
nice.
I'm not even looking for it; it just shows up, right? Like that
Yeah, okay.
tells you how the algorithms are working. But with that many people following you, and the amount of time that you're working on projects, you mentioned early on, sleep is important, right? But I mean, how do you balance the interactions, the work and just all these people that are reaching out to you?
Hmm. Yeah, you know what? Like maybe like a few months ago, I was more like more. I did post a little bit more a few months, but this past month or so, I've been kind of like once a week now.
Mhm.
Only because now I'm just focusing on the book.
Yeah.
So there's like
Mhm.
one thing you have to kind of sacrifice something in between. So it's hard. I mean, like to do that and do this and do that, like even like when I had other like social media stuff, it was like even that was just like too much for me. So like I just have Instagram. That's pretty much it.
Mhm.
And just because I have more, I get more. I guess the more interaction with Instagram and say Facebook. Facebook, I just get
Yeah.
like my mom saying like, "Nice drawing, son." I'm like, "Thanks, mom.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah.
Thanks, mom. Don't forget to like."
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, smash that like button, mom.
I even tried to do like a YouTube thing with my buddy, but
Mhm.
it all came down to like, okay, do I have the time for it? And again, I don't want to like commit,
Mhm.
and then next, like just like even with the Patreon, like I was doing the Patreon, but now I just kind of stopped doing Patreon. I
Yeah.
just because like it's either gonna be one or the other. So the Loathe
Mhm.
one had to be it's kind of like the top thing right now.
Yeah.
So with Patreon, I had like little things I would do, like little videos or like sketches, but then I had to cut that out. So it
Yeah.
was like this decision where I had to be like, okay, just message everybody and just say like, okay, I got a deal, so I won't be doing much on Patreon. You can leave if you want. That's like
Mhm.
me. If you leave, well, you can leave.
You
Yeah.
you know where the digital door is. You're
Yeah,
welcome to come back in anytime you want.
yeah. I mean, I get like it's either you like my stuff or me, and you
Mhm.
like it, you stay. If not, you just go. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I try to do much as I can, especially with Instagram. But I'll try to do like a few like a sketch at least a week or something,
Mhm.
and I do time it. So I just do say on a Wednesday, let's say, then the next day I'll just like respond to a lot of the messages. I try to do it, much as I can, but I have to be Loathe first. So
Yeah.
if I miss it, I miss it,
Mhm.
right? So it's like, okay, but I try. Like I do appreciate people who do message, and then I try to get back. I always say like they give the time to write, so I gotta
Mhm.
get time to write back at least. So I think I get to everybody. I think
Yeah.
because even my phone, I don't get a lot of
Mhm.
notifications. It doesn't work properly, so I
Yeah,
don't get
yeah.
anything popping up.
Mhm.
But when it does, like it will start going a little bit crazy. But then I don't get to see everything, so I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
I'll miss something.
Mhm.
Whatever.
There's got to be something your phone does to protect you from the fact that you're getting, 20, 30,000 likes on a sketch on a given day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Well, I remember. Yeah, like I remember when I was posting a line, like my phone will go a little bit too crazy, and it was just for me. It is a little bit too much. I even have a hard time when
Mhm.
people text me. I'd be like, oh,
yeah, yeah,
because if I'm working on something, I try to eliminate a lot of distractions. So
Mhm.
like when I'm working at home, I just like everything's to the side. I just don't look at anything if it buzzes. I do have to look in case of like it's like family or like friends or something, but
Mhm.
I don't usually respond right away. I remember one time I didn't respond to this one person on Instagram. Maybe it was like 6 hours, and he freaking like, oh, it felt like he was yelling at me and swearing. I'm like, what
Oh,
the hell?
wow.
Yeah,
6
just because
hours.
6 hour mark. Yeah, I guess it's different for
Yeah.
everybody. Like for me, like
Whew.
sometimes it takes a while, but it's
Yeah.
just the way I work. Like sometimes I get into like a beast mode, and I just like
Mhm.
next like 4 or 5 days go by, like oh shit, I gotta respond back.
I
But
mean,
this kid was like freaking 6 hours. I go, dude, give me.
Like, calm down, man.
He's like, whatever, block.
I was gonna say I don't remember us cursing when we were messaging back and forth. So I was like making sure was that me? Did I do that? I don't remember cursing at that.
I try not to curse as much.
You know what? We are very cavalier with it at times on this show. Every now and again we try to clean up our act, but most of the time it's pretty free flowing. We're
Oh, yeah.
sailors most of the time.
Mhm.
But we here's something I think is really cool, Vince, that a lot of creators, no matter what type, tend to do on our show is that we end up at advice, and it's not that we ever ask to give advice. It's just it naturally happens that way.
Yeah.
In this case, I am going to ask specifically about advice that you might have when it comes to artists that are just trying to find their footing, because you mentioned you
Mhm.
borrowed from things along the way, and we can see different influences as you've progressed too. So interested in hearing about your thoughts and advice for other creators that are trying to figure out maybe who their Loathe is, or who their Wolverine is, and what you can say there.
Well, it's definitely a long journey. I mean, I do get a lot of people who do message where it almost sounds like they want the magic pill, or like I want to draw like you. Like, well, I hope you got 40 years. But that's what it is. It's I always say it's a lot of practice. Like it's really
Mhm.
drawing every day, and if you have the passion and the patience, yeah, you'll get anything you want, really. Um, but I always say, like everything else, like it's definitely a lot of drawing every day. You gotta love it. Don't. Some people like kind of use it for like, how do I get famous or how do I get more likes? I just like,
Yeah.
just do it really. It always comes down to, I always say the last part. I
Mhm.
think when I message people is like, just make sure you have fun. And that's all it is. Like if you like working for other people, if you like doing this, but the bottom line really is like if you're having fun with it. Because like I remember there was one point when I was drawing, I really hated it. Like I just couldn't, because I wasn't doing my stuff. I didn't know until like later when I'm like, I should draw what I want.
Mhm.
And that's basically what I got done. And that came more fun. Now with Loathe, because like with the Loathe stuff, I'm doing something that I want in the story I'm trying to tell. And
Yeah.
I'm just loving the whole process. Like even just learning how to write, like not
Yeah.
write, but writing a
Yeah.
story
Yeah.
and then and putting the whole book together. Like doing a comic book is like, it's very tiring and tedious. But if you love it, and then at the end of the day, as long as you had fun, that's the key part. That's
Yeah.
all it is. Just have fun.
Yeah, and a question that I had for you is, just looking at your artwork, one, because like again, I'll never stop saying how incredible it is.
Thank you.
But like I think like with me, like one thing that I always tried doing when I was going through different art classes that I took is if I could avoid drawing hands at all costs, I would avoid drawing hands. Um, have you ever found like in your career or in your just in your love for art, like what was something that may have been a challenge for you? And in that 40 years of continuous practice, have you found any skills that do help you, like just stick with it? And you found something that helps you, succeed where you struggled.
Yeah, it's I think like the one thing for sure is like, yeah, like it kind of goes back to the patience,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is also the key part. A lot of practice because like don't get me wrong, there are parts where it's very frustrating when you try to learn something new.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, every day we're learning something new all the time. Like even when I'm drawing, I'm still learning something new. I'm just like, oh, I never thought of that. But it was all because
Mm-hmm.
it's just constant drawing,
Yeah.
constant practicing.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, like, again, it's almost to the point where when you find kind of discomfort, a lot of people it's like almost like a fork in the road. If you don't like it, and some people are like, well, I'm just gonna give up, or you just like, I mean, just want to overcome it. Like hands is
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I hated drawing hands,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll still use reference, but I had to find different techniques to make it a little bit more easier for me to get when drawing hands. But when to do that, I had to constantly
Mm-hmm.
draw every day to get the understanding of the hands. Because again, yeah, hands are just so tricky.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell like people like when I draw like say the abs, I like drawing the abs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, it's really hard to draw and how it moves.
Mm-hmm.
And I told people, look, man, I studied like muscle videos, muscle magazines, and everything for more than a year. But then it took me another year or so, even more, just to adapt that knowledge into my artwork.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's like a lot of practice, a lot of patience every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of practice.
Mm-hmm.
But again, when you get that hump, you just like, yeah, either people are just gonna just give up, or
Mm-hmm.
I just want to get it. I just want to overcome that technique and just do it. So the ab, yeah, the ab part. I remember when I used to look at when I draw abs, I didn't like it, but I knew I can do better. So, but never realizing it took me more than a few years just to get the abs.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got him now. So
Yeah,
whatever like
I make it
weird
up
like
as I go.
beach
But
body video you've done for drawing, you have nailed it.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say this too, Vince. I mean, through the years of these different card collections, I've always been blown away by the artists that can pack all this detail into these little tiny cards.
yeah,
And I mean, it's consistent that there's maybe like 10 or 12 artists in these sets to kind of look out for incredible detail. And there are others you look out for that are, maybe going more for like that comic look, right? Like the traditional comic look.
yeah, yeah.
And so, I was always blown away by seeing that your detail wasn't just able to be squeezed into a tiny card. It can be in a 5x8. You're not really, I mean, I've seen you being able to translate that detail no matter, what square, what rectangle you're working within. So, yeah, that's a big reason why I wanted to reach out to you, because I go, man, I've been, Susan blowing me away with art for almost a decade now. we got to see what he's up to. And you're in space. You're in space, man.
I'm in space.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to find the other gods.
Yeah. Well, hey, I guess kind of as a closing point, we always like to offer up the floor to our guests. I know you've plugged a little bit about your current projects, but where can we find you, Vince, online, and what else have you got going on?
I guess online, just on the Instagram on VinSun316. And then the main thing right now I'm working on is the Loaf Book. That one, I got about more than a year or so to complete the pages. It's about 200 pages.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and because I have like also like another job. Like I run my own print shop.
Mm-hmm.
So I have that on top. So yeah, I got a busy schedule. So I got to balance all this stuff.
I would say.
I mean, I would have got the book done sooner, but I got to run another business too. So I'm like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's like the main thing coming out. So we're aiming for like 2023. There might be a preview book next year. The graphic novel is broken down to 6 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So right now I'm working on, of course, chapter 1, and I think they're talking about doing a preview of the first chapter. And I have it written in a way where you get the feel of Loathe within that first chapter, and then hopefully it'll create enough hype for the rest of the book.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's cool, man. Well, Vince, we really do appreciate the time and for kind of taking us through, a little bit more of what you can't get from just reading the social media posts. I always wanted to tell the story of who Vince was outside of the artistry, and so really happy.
I didn't realize anyone wanted to know.
Yeah. Hey, there's, like we said, there's always people interested, and we can't thank you enough for your work. So thank you so much, Vince, for joining us.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. It's a real honor, man. I love doing stuff like this.